Hi, I'm Stephen Tiger. I'm public relations person for the Miccosukee Tribe. I'm also marketing and media coordinator.
Okay, and we're here with Pat Sykes and Joellen Phillips, and Stephen's going to tell us a little bit about the Miccosukee way of life. Pat, if you want to start with any questions.
How many people are out on this land?
Okay, we have around 500 Indian people living here on the reservation at any given time. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less. But there's about 368 enrolled numbers the last time that I heard. And it's probably growing. You had asked me before, are we dying out?
Yes.
And my answer to that is no, because when we were recognized, when our Constitution was recognized by the federal government in 1962, there was about 70 or 80 of us. So if you look at it like that, we're growing very big. I mean, compared to the old days when we were up around North Florida, southern Georgia, places like that, that we were bigger because we were part of the Creek Nation. But as far as the Miccosukees go, our traditional name is Iliponi. That's, I guess, what you might call our band. You know, then there's a Cheesaponi and there's other bands, but there used to be a lot more in the old days. But of course, the Indian Wars whittled down our numbers and stuff. But we are growing up again.
Would those be the 3 Seminole Wars? Is that what you mean?
Right. That's why we're here in the Glades, because Andrew Jackson and the federal government wanted all Indians living east of the Mississippi to move west of the Mississippi. And then, of course, our people got along good with the Spaniards, and we had land that the Spaniards had given us. We had been in Florida before America took Florida.
Yes.
But like I said, when the United States took over, they wanted all Indians out of Florida, and the Miccosukees would never go along with that. They wanted to send us out to Oklahoma, and that word means, in Miccosukee, means bitter drink. So right off the bat, we weren't going to go to some place they call bitter drink.
That's a wise move.
But we are growing.
Now, I understood that the Spaniards came and tried to sort of further their own empire here and make slaves out of the Miccosukee, and also imported blacks from Africa to build up their empire.
The Spaniards, as far as, I get most of my information from my father, who again was the chairman of the tribe, and his information came from the elders of him. And according to my father, the Miccosukees, the Iliponi, got along very well with the Spaniards. In fact, they would help them fight the United States sometime. And so we didn't have basically any problem with the Spaniards. In fact, a few of our people admit to having the Spanish blood in them. And sometimes they call them the Spanish Indians. But this goes back 100, 150, 200 years ago. So, you know, you can't tell anymore, but some of our people do admit it. And that's because we had such good relations with the Spaniards. Of course, the Spaniards, everybody knows, they did try to conquer South America and make those Indians into slaves, but the Indians here in North America wouldn't adhere to slavery at all. So usually they gave up. Trying to make American Indians, North American Indians, into slaves. Now, I can't speak about the Tequesta or the Calusa, because they died out mostly of diseases brought over by the Spaniards. And as far as I know, there weren't a lot of black people around after the Spaniards left all those times. They were here and gone, here and gone, here and gone. And as far as I know, there weren't a whole lot of black people in this area. I think the black people came down from runaway plantations in the South, and there are some black Indians up in we call them Muskogees. They speak the Muskogee language, and they're up in the Brighton Reservation. But the Miccosukees really didn't mix well with what we call Yaluji, which is black people. So a lot of people do think that we blended with the black slaves and stuff. We didn't really. It was mostly what they call the Cheesaponi, or which we call the Seminole tribe. they got along better with the upper creeks, and we were all, over the years we've all blended together. In a lot of ways there has been intermarriages and things, but the core of the Miccosukee has been out here in the Glades and has always felt a certain way about things, and really haven't lost that. That's why we're here out in the Glades, and if you see the people, you can see that there's not, there hasn't been a lot of intermarriage either with black people or white people.
Can you tell us about life now, out here in the reservation?
Depends on what you want to know. Life here on the reservation is different than it was when I was a child, because there was no reservation. When I was a child, I'm just going to do this as a comparison, I guess.
Okay.
When I was a child, the Indian village where you were just at a few minutes ago had no electricity, had no running water, had no plumbing. You used the outhouse to go to the bathroom. You bathed down in the canal or off to the side of the village where there was some trees and plants and stuff that could hide you. There was no TV, no refrigerators, nothing like that. It was like growing up camping. I mean, that's how a lot of people might look at it, growing up camping out. So it was a great life. But to the Indian people, it was just the traditional way of life. Now, when we were recognized in 1962 by the federal government, the reason why we wanted to be recognized was because back in the 20s, they put the Tamiami Trail through. And that was when, like my father, that's when he said he first saw a white man, was when they put the Tamiami Trail through. They were back in the swamps watching them from afar, seeing all these weird people putting a road through the Glades, wondering what the heck this is all about. That's the first encroachment, because the Everglades up to that point, the Miccosukees had lived in it. The Miccosukees in the old days lived up around northern Florida. We had plenty of land, we had lots of agriculture, we had schools, and we didn't have to live that hunter-gatherer lifestyle. And to make a long story short, over from the 1920s, from the time they put the road through till they made the south side of the road Everglades National Park, and then up into the 50s, where you started seeing rednecks and hunters and stuff back in the Glades and the airboats. I mean, what was once a natural barrier, geography saved us, became a playground for non-Indian people. I mean, you could be back there on your hammock and you could see, white hunters coming through with beer cans everywhere and, trash everywhere. So we realized that we needed to be protected. So the tribe got organized, and they chose my father, Buffalo Tiger, as spokesman. And he went to Washington, he went to Tallahassee, he went all over the place trying to get our people recognized. The government said no, because you've already been recognized. When they did a head count of Indians in Florida, they included us in the Seminole head count. They never asked for any representatives from our particular group of Indian people. So we said that's when it came out, that we don't consider ourselves part of the Seminole tribe. All those years we had let people call us whatever we want, because nobody out here really cared. We knew who we were and didn't have a problem with people calling us Seminole, because what did it matter? The only time it really mattered was when the culture came on the line. So that's when my dad was sent around to try to get the tribe recognized. So they kept on saying no, 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 no. And finally in 1962, and in no way is this condoning communism, my dad and a delegation of Indian people went to Cuba and met with Fidel Castro. And Fidel Castro recognized us as a sovereign nation and even wanted us to come to Cuba, and we would have all the rights and privileges as Cuban citizens. And I always have to say this, because my dad doesn't even like me telling this story, because his friendship for Spanish people goes back a couple hundred years ago, and he was very serious about that. So he doesn't want to offend our Latin friends. So I always have to say that we're not communists, and in no way was this condoning communism. This was just a tool, a leverage tool, and it worked, because in 1962 the United States recognized us. And when we were recognized, they finally, the tribe realized that they were going to have non-Indian education. Before that, it was frowned upon. Non-Indian education was frowned upon. In fact, 20, 30 years before that, if you learned to read or write, you could be thrown out of the tribe. You could be ostracized, and people would consider you a white man.
And read or write anything?
English. No, English.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
English.
well, anything non-Indian. I mean, it could be French.
Okay.
It could be Spanish. If you learned how to read or write and do math and things like that, that was white men's stuff, for lack of a better word. And the tribe realized they had to change because, and this is very hard for the Miccosukee because change to us, it's not like non-Indian people. The traditional way of the Miccosukee people is not to change, to stay the same, to remain as Mother Nature made us, as God made us. And people don't like to change out here. So doing this was a big step in the Miccosukee story.
Well, the Miccosukees have been described as the only real true environmentalist. And so
I think that's probably a good description, but it's not like in the same way that non-Indians call an environmentalist. I mean, for us, for Miccosukee people, it's a way of life. It's a religion almost, and it's something that is just embedded. It's not something that you go out and become militant. You go in town and turn over cars, or you know.
It's the way you live.
Yeah, it's a way you live, and it's something that has always been done and always will be done. It's a way you think, and you know, people would have listened to Indian people all over the country 200 years ago. The world, the United States especially, would be a much better place.
Amen to that, boy.
And I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but I sometimes get frustrated with some of the groups who become radical and militant about these things, because sometimes the way they go about it is not the way we would go about it, and sometimes they'll put people down for having a certain lifestyle which was forced on them. You know, they'll come to us, well, why don't you live back in the glades like you should, like old Indians do? Why don't you just do this and you do this? And, you know, people to presume to tell us the way that we are supposed to live. A lot of times environmentalists, you know, people that want to save the Indians, and, you know, just people that are very presumptuous in a lot of ways.
It sounds like you're doing a pretty good job of saving yourself, Bill.
I think so.
And especially your father, for a culture that takes slowly to change, or as you said, we don't, you know, we just, the Miccosukes, yet your father somehow was visionary then in getting you recognized by the government.
Well, you know, the way that our people look at it, it's kind of like, you know, some people might look at it like, you know, he was visionary, he's very special, and in a way he is. But the way our people look at all this is that it's common sense. His visions were just common sense. It wasn't anything mystical or anything out of the extraordinary or anything. It was common sense, and that's the way we look at life.
Well, I think you and your brother were sort of the visionaries. I mean, becoming a rock band, a Miccosukee rock singers. I mean, come on now.
At one festival, this German lady came up to me and goes, you know, what is this? You playing rock and roll, you know, with her thick German accent. She goes, you shouldn't be doing this. You know, you're a prostitute. You know, you're prostituting yourself and your culture. And I said, if you would listen to our music, you would hear this is the kind of stuff that we were trying to get over. Indian people don't just sit around out here singing songs and being mystical and selling beads and crying because the land has been hurt. You know, we're strong. We're going into the space age. We're going to have doctors. We're going to have lawyers. We're going to have to drive cars. We're going to have to work computers. We're going to have to be very, very strong to survive in the new world, because you can't. It's impossible to live like we did 200 years ago now.
Do you go to Jackson Memorial when you get sick? Do you have medicine men? Do you do your own treatment for illnesses? Or do you do
We do both.
The allopathic?
We do both. We have medicine men still, and we also have an Indian. Before you leave, you should drive down the old Tamiami Trail. That's the road that the village is on, and you'll see the homes, and you'll see our offices and stuff. We have our own police department.
You mean further west?
A mile west, yeah, down that road. We have a police station.
Right.
We have Indian Health Service. We have schools all the way from kindergarten up through 12th grade. We have a little city growing out here that nobody knows about. And
Are they
it's being done our own way.
Are you teaching both languages?
Well, our children enter school speaking Miccosukee as the first language. So in our schools we have Indian teachers and non-Indian teachers.
Is it your hope? And you have children, correct?
Yes.
How many?
3 and 1 on the way.
One in the
And Are you married to a Miccosukee woman?
No, I'm married to a Jewish girl, and our little boy is an Indu Jew. Technically, I don't have a clan because my mother was not Indian. My mother and father met at an Indian village in Miami back in late 40s, Musa Isle Indian Village.
Remember that.
And she came out here and learned to speak the language and was very well accepted by the people. But then they broke up when I was young because she wanted to go to college and stuff like that because she was like 16 when she had me. So they broke up, and the only relatives I knew were Indian people. This is why I claim the Indian side of myself more than the non-Indian, because I've never known hardly any of my non-Indian relatives. They were from Boston. I think they were kind of snobby. But
Keep in touch with your mom?
Not too much. I see her once or twice a year, something like that. But we, I don't hold any grudges or anything like that. But getting back to the other thing.
So your little Indu Jew, as you call him.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Is he? Will he be?
Let him
Oh,
finish.
I'm sorry.
Okay. What we're doing as far as this goes, because I don't have a clan. And when I was young, you have to remember the tribe was very, very traditional back then. Hardly anybody spoke English, and it could be, sometimes we were, on the outside of things, so to speak. Nowadays it's different because there are more half people in the tribe. But my uncle, who didn't give me a name when I was a child, I took my son to him, Madison, and I asked my uncle if he would give Madison a name, and he thought about it for a couple weeks, and I took my son back over to Madison 2 weeks after he was born, and my uncle told me that I never had a clan, my brother didn't have a clan, but he's close with my father, and that because my father had worked with the tribe for so long with his brother and everything, he considered us to be of the bird clan, which is something very taboo out here to kind of recognize us as a bird clan, especially for my uncle, because he was traditional all his life. He fought for traditional stuff all his life to stay traditional. So in a way, this was a great acceptance for me by the Indian side of my family. But then he turned around and gave my son an Indian name. He said, because your father's bird clan, I'm going to give you the name of a bird, so you'll have a clan then. So he gave me a choice of 3 different names, and I chose Fushapkit, which in Miccosukee means white bird, or egret. So my son actually does have a Miccosukee name, but because he's only 1/4 Miccosukee, out here to be a member of the tribe, you have to be at least 1/2 Miccosukee or 1/2 Seminole. So rather than try to push my son through the business council or through the general council and get him recognized by the tribe, because we would open up a big can of worms trying to get a person who was only 1/4 Miccosukee. I went ahead and enrolled him in the Seminole tribe, which had to go through a process too, but he was accepted and is now a member of the Seminole tribe, which I feel is very important for him to be a part. But I'm going to raise my son because we are matriarchal out here, and also the Jewish people are matriarchal. I'm going to raise him probably more as in the Jewish faith. It aligns up in a lot of ways with the Miccosukee faith, and I think he'll be fine. And later on in life, if he wants to change into whatever faith he wants, he'll be allowed to do it. He won't be stopped by us in anything. We're not going to put a lot of rules on him. We're going to try to raise him as free as possible, because that is the part of the Indian way, is not so many restrictions like non-Indian people have. Not to say there's not morals and things like that, but it's a much freer lifestyle. So that's what we're going to do, and I think he'll do fine.
How is it, if I may, that your uncle, you took your son to your uncle? Is it the uncle's place in the family to recognize and give a name rather than the grandfather?
Well, I went to my father, and my father said to take him to the uncle. But our grandfather isn't alive. Sometimes the grandfather is supposed to do it, but the uncle is the one in the Miccosukee culture. The uncle is the person who actually teaches a child. It's not the father. The father can reprimand them and feeds them and takes care of them and loves them, but the uncle is the one who is supposed to teach a child
I think it's a great way to keep a family together too, that everybody has.
Sure, because then you don't have the animosity when somebody,
No, I was reading about that and I thought, boy, this is tremendous.
I'm not going to say that I'm traditional. I'm not going to say that I'm a traditional Indian at all, because I consider myself, again, a space age Indian. Now, and the reason why I say this is because to be a traditional Indian, a real traditional Indian, you would have to live like my father did, out on an island. You wouldn't wear shoes. You would get up in the morning. You would go to over to the side of your hammock. You would get a turtle, maybe some fish, maybe eggs, whatever, and that's how you would have breakfast. You wouldn't hop in your car and go to McDonald's, turn on the TV, go to your refrigerator, open it up and take food out, put it on your electric stove and cook it. Now, today, a lot of Indian people live like this. They live in CBS blockhouses. They wear clothing made by non-Indian people. They drive in cars. They use all the latest appliances. They turn on their air conditioner. They take showers. They don't get out in the canal like that. Even when I was a kid, that's the way we took baths when I was on the reservation. We get into the canal and take a bar of soap and rub it all over us, and that's how we live. But nowadays, traditional, what they call traditional now, is changing. I mean, if my great-great-grandfather saw people now that consider themselves to be traditional Indians, they'd roll over in their grave. They'd say these guys have become white men, because you weren't supposed to drive cars. You didn't wear shoes in the old days. Your feet, as much as possible, were supposed to be close to the earth, kind of like a communion with nature.
Well, I think you'd probably be pretty alarmed just you plugging your microphone into those amplifiers sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Blow them away.
So my point is, and this is what I was saying to you, we're metamorphosizing into, as opposed to changing into some type of warped creature. I think it's a metamorphosization into a better person, a better type of Miccosukee Indian, because it's a matter of survival. If we try to hold on to too much of the past, it's going to hurt us, because you just can't live like that anymore. But if you let it go too fast, we're going to just kind of flip-flop into this new way of living, and then we're going to lose our character as Miccosukees and as people. But if we do it properly, and I think the tribe has been doing this at the proper pace, because it had to move fast, because we weren't recognized until 1962. Before that, there was no education. Then all of a sudden, we have our own schools here. We have people reading and writing. We have people now in the offices that work computers, people that type, people that speak fluent English better than me or you, and and also speak very good Miccosukee, but yet attend the corn dance, which is the main religious practice that the Miccosukees have left. In the old days, there were a lot more, but that is the main one, and we are still practicing that out here. But I'm not going to say that I'm traditional, and I can't say that a lot of people out here are traditional, but I am a member of the tribe, and I consider myself to be a Miccosukee because I grew up out here. I have the heart and the soul of an Indian person, although I also have a lot of knowledge and a lot of desires that a non-Indian would have. And I've had to blend them together, and I think a lot of Indian people out here are having to do the same thing. And we're getting along, we're getting by, and again, we're metamorphosizing.